The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days, and neither had the fear in Lily Carter's chest. She was 19, she was invisible, and she had just done the one thing every soul in that city knew never to do. She had put her bare hands on a bleeding Hell's Angel and refused to let go. Now the most feared men in America were combing the streets looking for her, and Lily was certain they were coming to make her pay. If you believe every forgotten person still matters, subscribe right now and stay with me until the very end. And tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I want to see how far Lily's story travels. The bridge on Kessler Street had two rules, and Lily Carter had learned both the hard way. The first rule was that the concrete under the north pillar stayed dry when the rain came sideways. The second rule was that you kept your eyes down when the motorcycles rolled through, because the men who rode them owned this part of the city in a way no landlord and no cop ever could. You hear me, girl? Dorothy had said the first night Lily curled up under that bridge. You see those bikes? You look at your shoes. You don't look at them. You don't talk to them. You don't exist to them. That's how you stay breathing. I'm good at not existing, Lily had answered. Dorothy had laughed a dry rattle of a sound and pulled her blanket tighter. Yeah, I bet you are, baby. That was 4 months ago. 4 months of learning the geography of a city that had decided she wasn't worth a map. 4 months of soup lines and locked doors, and the specific grinding loneliness of being 19 with nobody in the entire world who would notice if she simply stopped. She had counted it out once on a bad night. If she disappeared, really disappeared, how long before anyone knew the foster system had closed her file the day she turned 18? No parents, no siblings she'd ever met, no aunt, no grandmother, no teacher who'd bothered to keep her number. The answer she came up with was never. Nobody would ever know. And somehow that thought on the worst nights felt less like grief and more like freedom. If nobody was watching, then nobody could be disappointed. If nobody expected anything, then she couldn't fail them. She had made peace with being nothing. Then came the storm that changed everything. It started as a normal night if a girl sleeping under a bridge in a thunderstorm could call anything normal. The rain had picked up around 10 fat and mean, hammering the river until the whole underside of the bridge hummed. Lily sat with her back against the cold pillar knees, pulled to her chest, her one good hoodie zipped to her chin. Dorothy was gone that night. She'd found a cot at the church shelter on Vine, and there'd only been the one. Lily had told her to take it. She always told her to take it. You sure, baby? Dorothy had asked, hovering guilty. Go. I've slept through worse than a little rain. This ain't a little rain. Dorothy. Lily had smiled at her, that careful, practiced smile she used to make grown-ups stop worrying and move along. I'll be here in the morning. Go get warm. So now she was alone, and the storm was screaming, and she was trying to sleep the way she taught herself, going somewhere else in her head, somewhere with a kitchen and a light left on for her. She never got there, because over the roar of the rain, over the thunder, over the river slapping the pillars, came a sound she knew even before her mind put a name to it. An engine, not a car, a motorcycle, big throaty, wide open, coming down Kessler Street way too fast for a road this wet. Lily's whole body went still, the way a rabbit goes still. Look at your shoes, Dorothy's voice said in her head. You don't exist to them. She looked at her shoes. The engine screamed louder, closer, and then she heard the sound of a machine losing its grip on the earth. It wasn't dramatic. That was the thing that stuck with her later. It wasn't a movie explosion. It was a short, ugly, sliding shriek of rubber and then metal on wet asphalt. A long, grinding scrape. A crack like something enormous had been dropped, and then a single high sound that took Lily a full second to understand was a human being. Then nothing. Just the rain. Lily didn't move. Don't look at them. You don't exist to them. That's how you stay breathing. She stayed pressed against the pillar, heart going so hard it hurt, and she told herself the rule. She told herself the rule 3 times. She told herself that whatever had just happened out there on that road had nothing to do with her, that a girl like her had exactly one job in this world, and it was to stay invisible, to stay out of it, to survive. And then through the rain, she heard the voice. Help. It was barely anything. A woman's voice, thin and wet and getting thinner. Please, someone. Lily's hands began to shake. It's not your problem, she told herself. You call for help, you show your face, they'll know you were here. You touch one of them, and if it goes wrong, if she doesn't make it, they'll blame you. They always blame the nobody. You know how this ends for a girl like you. Please, And Lily Carter, who had spent 4 months perfecting the art of not existing, discovered in that moment that there was one thing she could not do. She could not sit in the dark and listen to a human being die alone. "God help me," she whispered, and she ran toward it. She came around the pillar and out into the full fury of the rain, and the road opened up in front of her. The motorcycle was on its side, 30 feet down the slick asphalt, one wheel still spinning its headlight, throwing a crazy tilted beam across the wet street. And pinned beneath it, half under the machine, one leg trapped, dark hair plastered across her face, was a woman. She was older than Lily, 40, maybe 45. A heavy leather jacket soaked black. And even from here in the dark, in the rain, Lily could see the patch on the back of it, the thing that made her blood freeze. A skull, wings, Hell's Angels. Lily stopped dead. For one long, terrible second, every instinct she owned screamed at her to turn around. This wasn't a stranded stranger. This was them. This was the one thing Dorothy had warned her about, the untouchable thing, and Lily was standing over one of their own alone homeless, with nothing to her name and everything to lose. The woman's eyes found her. "Help me," she breathed. "Please, I can't. My leg." And whatever fear had rooted Lily to that road, it broke. She dropped to her knees in the water beside the woman. "Okay," Lily said, and her own voice sounded strange to her, steadier than she felt. "Okay, I've got you. I'm here. What's your name? Stay with me. What's your name?" "Victoria." "Victoria, good. Hi, Victoria, I'm Lily." She was already running her hands over the situation fast, the way you learn to when you've spent your life around people who get hurt and can't afford a hospital. The bike had come down on Victoria's right leg. The tank was pinning her thigh. There was blood, a lot of it washing pink in the rain coming from somewhere higher near her collarbone. "Victoria, I need you to look at me, not at the leg, at me. Can you do that? It hurts." "I know it does. I know. You're doing so good." Lily's hands were shaking, and she made them stop. "I'm going to get this off you. Okay, I need you to breathe. Big breath. There you go." "Don't!" Victoria's hand shot up and grabbed Lily's wrist with a strength that surprised her. Her eyes were wild now, terrified, and not of the bike. "Don't call the police, don't!" "I'm not calling anybody yet," Lily said. "It's just me, just you and me, okay?" Something in Victoria's face loosened. She believed her, and Lily understood in that half second that this feared woman was looking at her the exact way Lily looked at the world, like everyone who showed up was a threat. "Oh," Lily thought, "you're scared of them too, whoever they are for you." "Just you and me," Lily said again. "Now hold on." The bike weighed more than Lily did, a lot more. She got both hands under the frame, planted her feet against the slick road, and pulled, and it didn't move, not an inch. And Victoria screamed, and Lily nearly let go. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." She dropped it back, and Victoria's scream cut off into ragged sobbing. Lily's arms were burning. The rain was in her eyes. "You can't do this. You're too small. You should have stayed under the bridge. You should have—" "Lily!" Victoria's voice cracked, but it's suddenly clear. "You're going to have to lift the tank, not the whole bike. Just enough. Then I'll pull my leg. On 3. You understand?" Lily stared at her. Even now, even pinned and bleeding, the woman was giving orders like she'd been born to it. "Yeah," Lily said. "Yeah, okay, on 3. You count." Lily got her grip again closer to the tank. This time, and set her whole body against it. Her sneakers slid on the wet asphalt, and she jammed them harder. "1," she said. "2," Victoria breathed. "3." Lily didn't lift with her arms. She lifted with everything, with 4 months of hunger and cold, with every locked door, with every person who'd walked past her like she was part of the sidewalk. She lifted with the specific ugly rage of a girl who'd been told her whole life she was too little to matter, and the bike came up 3 inches for, and Victoria dragged her leg free, with a howl that Lily felt in her own teeth. Then Lily let the machine crash back down and collapsed into the water beside her, both of them gasping. "You did it?" Victoria said, half a laugh, half a sob. "You crazy. You actually did it." "Don't move," Lily panted. "The blood you're bleeding up here." She was already stripping off her hoodie, the only warm thing she owned, wadding it against the wound at Victoria's collarbone and pressing down hard. Victoria hissed. I know. Keep pressure. Look at me. You're not dying tonight. You hear me? Not on my watch. I decided not tonight. Victoria looked up at this soaking wet girl in a thin t-shirt kneeling in a thunderstorm, leaning her whole weight into keeping a stranger alive, and something crossed her face that Lily didn't have a word for yet. Who are you? Victoria whispered. Nobody, Lily said automatically. I'm nobody. Now shut up and breathe. She stayed. That was the thing. Anyone could have called it in and walked away. Lily could have flagged the first car pointed and vanished back into the dark, kept her rule, kept her invisibility, kept herself safe. She didn't. She knelt in the middle of Kessler Street in a storm for what felt like an hour, but was maybe 12 minutes, one hand pressed to a stranger's wound, the other holding Victoria's cold hand, and she talked. She talked the way you talk to keep someone in their body when their body is trying to quit. Tell me something good, Lily said. Tell me one good thing. Anything. My husband, Victoria breathed. Michael, he's going to be so mad I took the bike out in this. He loves you, huh? A weak smile. 30 years. 30 years, Lily repeated, and something in her chest ached that she didn't let show. That's a long time for somebody to love you. You got somebody, Lily. The girl's hand didn't stop pressing on the wound, but for a second her whole face went somewhere far away. No, she said. No, it's just me. Victoria's cold fingers tightened around hers. Not tonight, it isn't, the biker queen whispered. And Lily had to look away out at the rain because that one sentence hit her harder than the weight of the whole motorcycle had. The sirens came before she was ready for them. She heard them a long way off cutting under the thunder, and with them something else. A deeper sound, a rolling sound growing. Engines, many engines, coming fast. Victoria heard it too, and her whole body changed. That's them, she breathed. That's my... Her eyes came up to Lily's urgent. The club. Somebody must have called Michael. Lily, stay. Whatever you're thinking right now, don't you... But Lily was already looking down the road at the first headlights, breaking through the rain, and Dorothy's voice was screaming in her skull. You touch one of them, and it goes wrong. They blame the nobody. They always blame the nobody. You know how this ends for a girl like you. Her blood turned to ice water. She saw it all in one horrible flash, the men arriving finding their queen, broken and bleeding on the ground and a homeless. Nobody crouched over her with blood on her hands. Who would they believe? What story would make sense to them? Not the truth. Never the truth. The truth was that a nobody had saved her, and men like that didn't believe in stories where the nobody was the hero. She'd be the one who did it, the one they'd remember, the one they'd come for. Lily! Victoria's grip tightened. Don't, please, don't you dare. I have to press this, Lily said, and gently, she peeled Victoria's own hand up and pressed it down on the wadded hoodie against the wound. You keep this here, hard. You hear me, don't let go. Help's here. You're safe. You're going to be okay. Lily, you have a husband who loves you for 30 years. Lily's voice cracked and she hated that it did. Go home to him. What is your name? Victoria was crying now and it wasn't the pain. Your full name, Lily, what? But the headlights were close and the sirens were louder and the storm was still screaming, and the girl who had made peace with being nobody did the only thing she'd ever been good at. She disappeared. She was up and gone before the first bike reached them over the guardrail, down the wet embankment, swallowed by the dark under the bridge and the rain and the river gone, as if she'd never been there at all, leaving behind only a soaked gray hoodie pressed to a wound and a bleeding woman screaming a name into the storm. Lily! Victoria's voice tore after her. Lily, come back, somebody stop her! But there was no one to stop. There was only rain and an empty road and a girl running from the best thing she'd ever done, as if it were a crime. Jim. Under the bridge, Lily pressed her back against the cold pillar and clamped both hands over her own mouth to keep the sobs from getting out. She was shaking so hard she couldn't feel her fingers. Her t-shirt was soaked through and freezing. Her hands, she looked at them, in the tilted light, spilling under the bridge. Her hands were still pink with a stranger's blood, washing clean in the rain. Above her on the road, she could hear it all. The bikes arriving one after another, a dozen, 2 dozen, the engines cutting out, boots hitting wet pavement, men's voices, low urgent, dangerous. Vic, baby, I'm here. That would be the husband. Michael, 30 years. Don't move her, wait for the medics. Who did this? Somebody ran her off the road. No, listen to me. And that was Victoria's voice rising above all of them, ragged and desperate and refusing to be calmed. A girl pulled the bike off me. She saved my life, Michael. She was right here. She ran. She got scared and she ran. You have to find her. Who, Vic? Who? Lily. Her name is Lily. She's just a kid. She had nothing. Michael, she gave me her jacket. She find her. Promise me you'll find that girl. Under the bridge, Lily Carter squeezed her eyes shut and shook her head in the dark. No. Don't look for me. Please don't look for me. Leave me be. Let me be nobody again. Being nobody is safe. Being nobody is all I know how to be. She heard the ambulance doors. She heard them take Victoria away. She heard the bikes one by one roar back to life and roll out into the city. And then for the first time in 4 months, Lily was truly completely alone under that bridge, and it did not feel like freedom. It felt like the worst mistake of her life. She didn't sleep. She sat with her knees to her chest and her arms wrapped around them, and she replayed it 1,000 times, and every time it ended the same way, with her running with Victoria's voice, screaming her name into a storm, with the one moment in 19 years that a human being had looked at her like she mattered, and Lily throwing it back into the dark because she was too afraid to be seen. Stupid, she whispered to herself. Stupid girl. She said you were safe. She said it. But she knew why she'd run. She'd run because safe was a word other people got to have. She'd run because every single time in her life she had let herself hope somebody meant it. A foster family, a caseworker, a friend. The door had closed and left her standing on the outside of it. She'd learned to close the door herself first. It hurt less when you were the one who left. Except this time it didn't hurt less. This time it hurt like she'd left something behind that she was never getting back. Around dawn, the rain finally stopped. The city came up gray and dripping and ordinary, as if nothing at all had happened, as if a woman hadn't nearly died on Kessler Street, as if a girl hadn't reached into the dark and pulled her back. And that was when Lily made her decision. They're going to look for me. She knew it the way she knew cold and hunger in her bones. She told her husband my name. They're the Hell's Angels. They don't forget. They don't let things go. And when men like that come looking for the homeless girl who put her hands on their queen, it does not matter what really happened. It only matters what they decide happened. She thought about the blood. She thought about how it would look. She thought about every cop, every caseworker, every adult who had ever looked at her file instead of her face and decided who she was before she opened her mouth. They're going to come, and I can't be here when they do. She stood up on stiff, frozen legs and she started gathering the pathetic little pile of things that made up her entire life. A backpack, a second shirt, a water bottle, a paperback with the cover gone. She had to find Dorothy, she had to warn her, and then she had to get out of this part of the city, maybe out of the city altogether before the search started, because Lily Carter did not know, could not have known that a mile away in a hospital room, a woman named Victoria Hayes was gripping her husband's hand and refusing every painkiller until he swore an oath to her. She did not know that Michael Hayes, a man whose name made grown men step off the sidewalk, had walked out of that hospital at 4 a.m, gathered the most feared motorcycle club in the state, in the parking lot under the dying rain, and told them the search had nothing to do with punishment. She did not know that at that very moment, all across the waking city, hundreds of leather-jacketed men and women were fanning out through shelters and soup kitchens and underpasses carrying not weapons, but a single impossible message. We're not looking for her to hurt her. We're looking for her to thank her. Lily Carter thought she was running from the worst danger of her life. She was running from the first family she'd ever been offered. She found Dorothy at the church on Vine sitting on the front steps with a paper cup of coffee, watching the street with the flat, patient eyes of a woman who had seen everything twice. Well, look who lived through the flood, Dorothy said. Then she got a good look at Lily's face and her smile fell right off. Baby, what happened to you? You're white as a sheet. I have to leave, Lily said, dropping down beside her, keeping her voice low, glancing at the street. Today, now, and you can't tell anybody you know me, Dorothy. I mean it. Slow down. Dorothy grabbed her hands and then went, still staring at them. There was still a rim of dried blood under Lily's fingernails that the rain hadn't gotten. Whose blood is this, Lily? Whose blood? I didn't hurt anybody. I swear I didn't hurt anybody. It was the opposite. And it all came out of her in a rush, the crash, the woman, the bike, the leather jacket, the patch, the running. Dorothy's face changed as she listened, and it did not change the way Lily expected. It went pale. Then it went slack, with something that looked almost like awe. And then at the end, it went sharp with fear. Say that patch again, Dorothy said quietly. The one on the jacket. Describe it. Lily described it. Dorothy closed her eyes. Oh, baby, she breathed. Oh, you have no idea what you did last night, do you? I know exactly what I did. I put my hands on one of them. That's why I have to run before. You saved Victoria Hayes. Dorothy opened her eyes. You know who that is? You know who Victoria Hayes is. That's Michael Hayes' wife. That's the queen baby. That is the single most protected human being in this entire city. And last night, a homeless girl who weighs $110 soaking wet lifted a motorcycle off her in a thunderstorm and pulled her back from the dead. So they'll blame me if they will build you a throne. Dorothy's grip was almost painful now. Lily, listen to me while I'm saying, listen, I have been on these streets 20 years. I know what those men are. They are hard, they are dangerous, and God help the fool who crosses them. But there is one thing about that club that this whole city knows and nobody says out loud. She leaned in. They pay their debts, everyone, always, and you just handed them the biggest debt they have ever owed anybody in their lives. Lily was shaking her head, tears standing in her eyes. You don't get it. Nobody pays a debt to a nobody. They forget you. They always forget you. That's what people do with people like me. Dorothy, Then explain that, Dorothy said softly, and she pointed across the street. Lily turned. Taped to the light pole on the corner and to the next one and the one after that all down the block. Wet and slightly crooked from being hung in a hurry that very morning were flyers. Simple ones, a phone number, and above the number in thick black letters, a foot high, 6 words that stopped Lily Carter's heart. We just want to say thank you. Lily stared at the flyers. She stared at her own name, her name printed and taped to poles across the city, for anyone to see, for everyone to see the exact thing she had spent her entire life making sure would never happen. For the first time in 19 years, someone was looking for her, not to close her file, not to move her along, not to decide who she was, to find her. And the girl who had made peace with being nobody, the girl who had run from the best thing she'd ever done, sat down hard on the church steps with her name blazing at her from every corner of the block, and did not know whether what she felt was terror or hope, because after a whole life without either aimed in her direction, she had never learned to tell the two of them apart. Dorothy put an arm around her thin shoulders and pulled her in. They're going to find you, baby, she said gently. There's a couple hundred of them out there looking, and they are very, very good at finding people. The only question left is the one you got to answer yourself. She turned Lily's chin so the girl had to look at her. When they do, are you going to run again? Lily looked at the flyer, at her name, at the words thank you, which no one had ever once said to her and meant. And she couldn't answer. Not yet. Because somewhere across town, Michael Hayes was already climbing back onto his bike, a photograph in his jacket that Victoria had described to a sketch artist through a morphine haze. Thin blonde, maybe 19, ran toward Kessler and the bridge, and he was pointing that machine straight at the one place in the city Lily had always felt safe, the bridge on Kessler Street. And this time there would be nowhere left to disappear to. He's coming to the bridge, Lily whispered. Dorothy, I know it. He's coming to the bridge. You don't know that. I do. His wife told him I ran toward Kessler. Where else would a homeless girl run? He's a hunter. That's what those men are. Lily was already on her feet, backpack over one shoulder, eyes darting up and down the block like the flyers themselves might come loose and chase her. I left my stuff there. My blanket, Dorothy, my mom's picture. It's the only picture I have, and it's still under that bridge. And if he gets there first, then let him have the blanket. It's not the blanket, Lily's voice cracked. It's the picture. And that stopped Dorothy because in 20 years on the street, she had learned that everybody, no matter how far down, kept one thing they would run back into a burning building for. For Lily, it was a water-stained photograph of a woman she barely remembered holding a baby she'd been told was herself on the back of it, 3 words in faded pen, "My Lily always." The only person who'd ever written her name and meant it. Until this morning, until the flyers. "Then we go together," Dorothy said, hauling herself up. "And we go fast. And if those bikes are already there, you let me do the talking you hear. You don't run into a wall of leather and hope. You let old Dorothy stand in front of you. You can't protect me from them." "No," Dorothy admitted, "but I can slow them down long enough for you to think for once instead of just bolting like a scared rabbit. Now come on." They moved through the waking city fast, keeping to the alleys, and every corner they turned, there were more flyers. Lily's name over and over, taped and stapled and taped again. "Lily, we just want to say thank you." She kept her hood up and her eyes down and her heart going like a hammer, and the whole way there was a voice in her head. She couldn't shut off a voice that sounded like every adult who'd ever failed her. It's a trick. Nobody looks for a nobody to thank her. They look to blame, they look to use, they look because they want something. The second you show your face, you'll learn what they really came for, and it will be too late to run. She'd survived 19 years by listening to that voice. She was starting to hate it. They came up on Kessler Street from the riverside, low along the embankment, and Lily saw the bikes before she saw the men. 3 of them parked at the top of the road near the bridge, and standing among them, broad-shouldered in a black jacket, was a man she had never seen and knew instantly. Michael Hayes. He wasn't searching the way she'd pictured, kicking through her things, tearing the place apart. He was just standing there at the mouth of the bridge, very still, holding something small in his 2 enormous hands, looking down at it. It was her blanket, and on top of the blanket, resting in his palms, as carefully as if it were made of glass, was her photograph. Lily's whole body seized. "He found it," she breathed. "He found it. Dorothy, he's got my..." "Easy, easy. Look at him. Look at how he's holding it." And Lily really looked, and something didn't fit. Michael Hayes was not searching a suspect's belongings. He was standing in the rain-wet morning with a homeless girl's blanket and a homeless girl's photograph in his hands, and his head was bowed, and even from this distance, Lily could see his shoulders were not the shoulders of an angry man. They were the shoulders of a man who was breaking. "That's the woman who saved my wife," she heard him say low to the man beside him. He turned the photo over. "Read the back." His voice came out rough. "My Lily always. God, she's got nobody. Vic was right. She's got nobody in the whole world, and she still ran out into that storm for a stranger. We'll find her, Mike. She's scared of us." Michael's jaw worked. "That's the part I can't..." "She pulled a bike off Vic with her bare hands, and then she ran because she was scared of us. You understand what that means? We built something so mean that the bravest kid in the city looked at our patch and thought we'd hurt her for saving somebody we love." He pressed the flat of his hand to his mouth for a second. 30 years I wore this thing proud. 30 years, and it took a homeless girl's blanket to make me ashamed of it. Under the bridge, hidden in the shadow of the pillar, Lily Carter stopped breathing. Because that voice, that huge, dangerous man standing there ashamed, was not the voice from her head. That was not a man who came to blame the nobody. That was a man who came to find her. Dorothy's hand closed around her wrist, gentle. "You hear that, baby?" she whispered. "You hear what that man just said? Now you tell me. You tell me that's a trap." Lily's eyes were burning. I can't. You've been telling yourself a story your whole life, that nobody comes for you, that everybody wants something." Dorothy squeezed. "That man is standing there holding your mama's picture like it's the last one on earth, and he's ashamed he scared you. When does the trap start, Lily? When's the part where it goes bad? 'Cause I'm looking real hard, and all I see is a man who wants to say thank you." And Lily wanted more than she had ever wanted anything to believe her. She took one step out of the shadow. Just one. And a twig cracked under her sneaker. Michael Hayes' head came up. For one frozen second, across 40 feet of wet pavement, the most feared man in the city and the most invisible girl in the city looked straight at each other. Neither one moved. Then Michael Hayes did something that no part of Lily's 19 years had prepared her for. He got down. He lowered himself, this enormous man, down onto one knee on the wet asphalt, slow and deliberate, the way you kneel when you don't want to spook a wounded animal. He set her blanket down beside him, and he held up her photograph in both hands out toward her, an offering. Lily, baby, he said. His voice carried soft and steady. My name's Michael. I'm not going to come to you. I'm going to stay right here. You want this back, you come get it. And if you want to run after, you run. I won't chase you. None of us will. You have my word, and my word is the only thing I've got that means anything. He swallowed. But I'd sure like the chance to thank the girl who saved my wife's life. Lily's legs were shaking so badly she could barely stand. You're not going to hurt me. It came out small, cracked 19, going on 9. For touching her, for putting my hands on something crossed Michael Hayes' face like a shadow. Is that what you thought? His voice broke on it. Sweetheart, you thought we'd hurt you for saving her. People always, Lily couldn't finish it. Not us. He shook his head slowly. Not for that. Never for that. He set the photo down on the blanket gently and lifted both his open hands to show her they were empty. You held her hand in a storm so she wouldn't die alone. Vic told me. She told me that a stranger with nothing left in the world gave her a jacket off her own back and said, not on my watch. His eyes were wet now, and he didn't hide it. You know how long it's been since somebody did something for my wife and didn't want a thing back. You know how rare that is in my world. You're the rarest thing I ever heard of, kid. And I have been on my knees on this road for the last hour, hoping you'd come back for your mama's picture so I could tell you that to your face. And that was the moment of the story Lily had told herself her entire life, that nobody comes, that nobody stays, that everybody wants something, finally quietly cracks straight down the middle. She walked toward him. Slow and shaking and ready to bolt at any second, she crossed the wet road to the kneeling giant, and she reached down and took her mother's photograph out of his open hands, and she clutched it to her chest, and then she just stood there 6 inches from Michael Hayes and could not make herself move away. Thank you, she whispered. Not for the thanks, for the picture. Thank you. No, Michael said, and his voice came apart completely. Thank you. And then this man who ran the most feared crew in the state, still down on one knee in the middle of Kessler Street, bowed his head to a homeless 19-year-old girl. She should have felt safe then. She almost did. And that was exactly when the other engines came. Not the deep, familiar rumble of the club. Something sharper, official, and with it a short whoop of a siren and the crackle of a radio. A police cruiser rolled up onto Kessler Street, and behind it a plain sedan, and Lily's brand new fragile hope shattered like it had never been. No. She backed up a step, the photo crushed to her chest. No, you called them. You called them. I didn't. Michael was on his feet fast, putting his body between Lily and the cars without even seeming to think about it. Lily, I didn't call anybody. Get behind me. But she'd already seen who got out of the sedan, and it was worse than police. A woman in a gray blazer with a lanyard and a clipboard, and a face Lily knew. Not that face specifically, but that type of face, that flat institutional patience. The face of every caseworker who'd ever shown up to move her from one placement to the next like a piece of furniture. Lily Carter, the woman called out. My name is Ms. Reyes. I'm with County Services. Sweetheart, we've had reports about your living situation, and I need you to come with me so we can... No. Lily was shaking her head, backing toward the bridge, toward the dark, toward the only thing she'd ever trusted. No, I'm 19. You can't. I aged out. You closed my file. You don't get to... There are also some questions, Ms. Reyes said, and her eyes flicked just once to Michael Hayes and the leather-jacketed men behind him. About an incident last night involving these individuals, and given your history and the environment you're currently in, I have a duty to... History? Michael Hayes said the word like I had tasted bad. You want to talk about her history, lady? This girl saved my wife's life last night. Pulled a 400-pound bike off her in a thunderstorm. That's the incident. That's the whole incident. She's a hero. Sir, I'm sure your gratitude is sincere, but a young woman with this file unhoused, now surrounded by... She gestured delicately at the bikes. By a known motorcycle organization that raises concerns I'm legally obligated to. Concerns. Michael took a step, and the caseworker took a step back, and Lily saw the exact instant the woman remembered who she was talking to. The concern is she's got a leather jacket standing near her instead of a suit. That's the concern. Say it plain. Michael! Dorothy's voice from the embankment, sharp and old and unafraid. Don't. You start yelling at County, you make it worse for the baby, not better. I've watched this 100 times. They twist it. Man yells, girl looks unsafe. Girl gets put somewhere she can't leave. She came up the slope, slow, breathing hard. Ms. Reyes, is it? I'm Dorothy. I've known this child 4 months. And I'm going to tell you the same thing that man just told you, only quieter, so it goes in your ears instead of your defenses. She saved a woman's life last night in the storm. That's who you're standing in front of. But Miss Reyes had already made a note on her clipboard, and Lily had seen that click of the pen 100 times too, and she knew what it meant. It meant the decision was already made. It meant the file was already being written. It meant nobody was a category, and Lily had just been dropped back into it. I just need you to come with me for an assessment, Lily. Ms. Reyes said gentler now, holding out a hand the way you'd hold it out to something you intended to cage. It's for your safety. And Lily Carter looked at that outstretched hand, and every single time in her life, that phrase had been a lie, came roaring back, and she did the only thing she had ever known how to do. She ran. She didn't get 3 steps, not because anyone grabbed her, because Michael Hayes said one word and it stopped her cold. Don't. She froze. She didn't know why she froze. Maybe because it wasn't an order. It was a plea. Don't run, Lily. He hadn't moved to chase her. He was keeping his word, standing right where he'd knelt. You run from her, you prove her right. You run, and every one of these people spends the next 6 months looking for you in shelters instead of you sleeping in a warm bed tonight. I know running feels safe. I know it's the only thing that's ever worked for you, but not this time. This time you've got people standing on this road who will not let anybody put you anywhere you don't want to go. You understand me? For the first time in your life, you don't have to run because you're not alone anymore. Lily stood at the edge of the bridge, 1 foot toward the dark, shaking. You don't know that, she said. You can't stop them. She's got a clipboard. People with clipboards always win. Always. Not against me, they don't. A new voice. Everyone turned. And Victoria Hayes was coming down Kessler Street on foot in a hospital gown under a leather jacket somebody had draped over her shoulders, one arm in a sling and one leg dragging, and her IV port still taped to the back of her hand, holding onto the arm of a young biker who clearly had no idea how to stop her and had given up trying. Vic, Michael was moving toward her before he finished the word. Vic, what in God's name, you're supposed to be in a bed? I heard County Services was down here trying to take my girl. Victoria's voice was pure iron, even as her body sagged against the young man holding her up. Her eyes found Lily and her whole face changed, went soft, went wet. There she is. There's my Lily. Then to the caseworker, iron again. You, clipboard, what's your name? Ma'am, you really shouldn't be. What is your name? Reyes, Miss Reyes. Miss Reyes. Victoria took a limping step forward, and even half dead in a hospital gown, she was unmistakably a queen. Last night I bled out on this road under my own motorcycle. You know who was here, not you, not the county, not the system that closed her file the day she turned 18 and dumped her under that bridge you're now so worried about. This girl, this homeless girl, she lifted 400 pounds of steel off my body. She gave me the only warm thing she owned, and she held my hand and told me I wasn't going to die alone. And then she ran because your world taught her that when a nobody touches a somebody, the nobody gets blamed. Victoria's voice shook. And here you are, right on time, proving her right. Ms. Reyes' pen had stopped moving. For a second, nobody spoke, and Lily stood at the edge of the bridge with her mother's photo pressed to her chest and watched a woman who should have been in intensive care wage war on her behalf. And she did not understand it. She did not have the equipment to understand it. Nobody had ever fought for her before. She had only ever been the thing people fought about over her head in rooms she wasn't allowed into. I understand there's gratitude, Ms. Reyes said, and her voice had lost some of its certainty. But gratitude isn't a housing plan. She's an unhoused 19-year-old with a documented history of instability. And I can't just, she's got a housing plan. Michael's voice was flat and final. She's got a home, ours, effective last night, whether she says yes today or takes a year to say it. There's a room, there's a door with a lock she controls. There's a family of about 300 people who will move heaven and earth for her, and if the county wants to check the box that says stable environment, I'll bring you references. I'll bring you the deed. I'll bring you a lawyer who will bury your whole department in paperwork." He didn't raise his voice, and that was what made it terrifying. "But you are not putting that child in a van today. Not while I'm standing here. Not while my wife dragged herself out of a hospital bed to stand here. Are we clear?" Ms. Reyes looked at Michael. She looked at Victoria, swaying but unbowed. She looked at the 300 flyers she'd surely driven past on the way over at the girl's name on every pole in the city. And Lily watched the calculation happen behind the woman's eyes, watched the story rewrite itself in real time. Not unhoused girl in a dangerous environment, but the girl the whole city is thanking. And Lily understood with a strange clarity that she had gone overnight from invisible to a headline, and that the clipboard bent to headlines the same way it bent to money and power and never once bent to a nobody. It should have made her bitter. Somehow it just made her tired. "I'll need documentation," Miss Reyes said, finally clicking her pen closed. "For the file. Guardianship isn't relevant at 19, but if there's a stable residence and a responsible party that changes the assessment, I'll need it in writing." "You'll have it by end of day," Michael said. Then Ms. Reyes looked at Lillian. For the first time, something almost human moved in her face. "Then it's her choice. She's an adult. I can't make her go anywhere, and I can't make her stay anywhere. Lily, do you understand that whatever these people are offering and whatever I came here worried about, the choice is actually yours. Nobody in this street gets to make it for you." And just like that, every eye on Kessler Street turned to Lily Carter. The homeless girl, the invisible girl, the girl who had spent her whole life being decided about. And for the first time, the decision was hers. She didn't say anything for a long moment. She looked at her mother's photograph. My Lily always. She looked at Dorothy, who gave her the smallest nod. She looked at Michael, still impatient. She looked at Victoria, gray-faced and trembling, and refusing to sit down until this was finished. "Why?" Lily said finally. Her voice was so quiet the whole street leaned in. "That's what I need to understand it, or I can't. Why me? You don't know me. Yesterday you didn't know I existed. Nobody's ever, people don't just," she was shaking. "What do you want? Everybody wants something. Just tell me what it is so I can stop waiting for it. Please, just tell me the catch." And Victoria Hayes, holding on to a stranger's arm to stay upright, started to cry. "Oh, baby," she said. "That's the saddest thing I ever heard. That you can't imagine somebody helping you without a catch." She let go of the young biker's arm, waved off Michael's lunge to catch her, and took 3 limping steps entirely on her own until she was standing right in front of Lily. "There's no catch. That's the whole thing you can't believe, and it's the truth. You saved my life, not for money, not for a reward, not because you knew who I was. You thought I was somebody dangerous, and you saved me anyway. You did it because you couldn't stand to let a person die alone." Victoria reached up with her good hand and very gently tucked a wet strand of blonde hair behind Lily's ear, the way a mother would. "That's who you are. And I have spent my whole marriage surrounded by tough people, loyal people, dangerous people, and I have almost never met anybody as good as you. So no catch. We just don't intend to let the best person any of us ever met go back and sleep under a bridge. That's all. That's the whole catch." Lily's face crumpled. "I don't know how to live in a house," she whispered. It was the truest, smallest thing she had. "I don't know how to sit at a table. I don't know how to, I'll do it wrong. I do everything wrong. That's why nobody ever." "Then you'll learn," Victoria said, "and you'll do it wrong, and we'll love you anyway, and you'll do it wrong again, and we'll still love you until one day it's not wrong anymore, and you don't even remember you were ever scared of a dinner table." She took Lily's free hand in hers, both of them shaking now. "You held my hand in a storm and you wouldn't let go. Let me do the same for you. Just this once, just let somebody hold on." And Lily Carter, 19 years old, no family, no home, blood barely washed from under her fingernails, looked down at the hand holding hers and did not pull away. "Okay," she breathed. It was so quiet Michael had to lean in. What did she say? She said okay. Victoria was laughing and crying at once, gripping the girl's hand like she'd never let it go. She said, "Okay, Michael." And a sound went up from the bikers on Kessler Street. Not a cheer exactly, something rougher and more real than a cheer. A low rumble of grown men and women who ran the meanest crew in the state, making a noise they didn't have a name for because a homeless girl had just said okay to being loved. But the story wasn't done with Lily Carter yet, and she knew it wasn't, and standing there in the middle of her own miracle, some cold and careful part of her was already waiting for the drop. It came from the caseworker. Ms. Reyes had walked back toward her sedan, and she was on her phone now, turned half away, but the street had gone quiet enough that the words carried, and Lily's ears, trained by 19 years of listening, for the moment things went bad, caught everyone. No, I've made contact. Yes, that, Carter. Listen, there's something in the old file you need to pull. Before we sign off on anything that pre-Foster history, the reason she came into the system in the first place. A pause. Because if that name is connected to these people, then this is not a housing case anymore. And somebody upstairs needs to know before those bikers make her their poster child on the 6 o'clock news. Lily went cold all over. Lily, Victoria still holding her hand, felt her go rigid. Honey, what is it? What's wrong? The reason I came into the system. Lily's voice had gone strange and flat. She was staring at Ms. Reyes' back. I don't actually know what it was. I was too little. Nobody ever told me. Every time I asked, they said it was sealed. They said I was better off not knowing. Her hand tightened around Victoria's. She just said there's something in there, something about who I was before, something connected to... She turned and looked slowly at Michael Hayes, at his patch, at the whole leather-clad crew of them. To you, to people like you. And Michael Hayes went very, very still, in the way of a man who has just heard a door open somewhere behind him that he thought had been locked for 20 years. Lily, he said carefully, how old are you exactly? And where'd they find you when you first came into the system? Do you know 19 and no? She was watching his face and she didn't like what was happening on it. Why are you looking like that? What's that face, Michael? What is that face? Michael didn't answer her. He was staring at the photograph still clutched to her chest, at the woman in it, at the baby, at the faded pen on the back that read, My Lily Always. And something was moving behind his eyes. Some terrible arithmetic. Some memory swimming up out of 30 years of a life that had held a great deal of loss. Can I? His voice came out rough. Lily, that picture, the woman holding you, can I see it again, please? Lily's every instinct screamed to hold it tighter. Instead, hands shaking, she turned it around and held it up so he could see. Michael Hayes looked at the water-stained face of the woman in the photograph, and the color drained out of him all at once like something pulled a plug. Oh my God, he whispered. Oh my God. What? Victoria's grip on Lily's hand had gone bloodless. Michael, what is it? Who is that? Do you know her? Michael Hayes could not speak. He reached out one enormous trembling hand toward the photograph of a woman he had clearly unmistakably seen before a long, long time ago. And every soul on Kessler Street held its breath, and Lily Carter stood frozen in the middle of the family she had just finally allowed herself to want, and understood with sick certainty that the ground she'd only just dared to stand on was about to open straight up underneath her. Michael, Victoria's voice was barely holding together. You say something right now. You know that woman. I've been married to you 30 years, and I have never seen your face do that. Who is she? Michael Hayes couldn't take his eyes off the photograph. His hand hovered over it, not quite touching, like touching it might make it true. Her name was Grace, he said finally. Grace Weller. The name meant nothing to Lily. It landed on her like a stone in stale water and just sank. My mom's name was... She stopped. Because the truth was, she did not know her mother's name. She'd never known it. The photo said Lily, the back of it said My Lily Always, but the woman holding her had never had a name, not one anyone had ever given the child. I don't know my mom's name, Lily admitted, and the shame of that at 19 nearly broke her voice. Nobody ever told me. Was her name really, Grace? If this is who I think it is... Michael dragged a hand down his face. Lily, I need you to sit down. Not because it's bad, because it's a lot, and you've had a lot, and I don't want you standing on the edge of that bridge when I say the rest of it. I don't want to sit down. Tell me standing up. I've heard everything standing up my whole life. Her jaw was set now, the fear hardening into something fiercer. Who was Grace Weller? Michael looked at Victoria. Something passed between them, 30 years of marriage in a single glance. And Victoria, who a minute ago couldn't stand on her own, straightened and nodded and took Lily's hand again, bracing for both of them. Grace Weller, Michael said slowly, was the little sister of a man named Danny Weller. And Danny Weller was my best friend, my road brother, my VP back when I was first building this chapter 20-some years ago. He swallowed hard. Danny and Grace grew up rough. No parents worth the name. It was just the two of them against the world the way, his voice caught, the way it's been, just you against the world. And Danny, he'd have done anything for that girl. Anything. Lily had gone completely still. What happened to them? Michael sat down over the guardrail heavily like the weight of the years had finally caught him. Grace got out, he said. That's the thing you have to understand first. Grace was smart, and Grace hated the life. She loved her brother, but she hated everything around him, the club, the danger, all of it. She said she wasn't going to raise a kid in it. He looked up at Lily. She had a baby girl, and she named her Lily. The whole street had gone silent. Even the bikes seemed to be holding their breath. Danny worshipped that baby, Michael went on. But Grace, she was scared. She'd seen too many club kids grow up hard. She wanted out clean, wanted to give the baby a normal life, a real name that had nothing to do with any of us. So one day she just left, packed a car, took. The baby didn't tell anybody where, not even Danny. His jaw worked. It broke him, losing his sister, losing that little girl. He looked for years, we all did. Grace didn't want to be found, and she was good at not being found. He met Lily's eyes. She was good at disappearing, just like somebody else I met yesterday. Lily's knees nearly went out from under her. Victoria caught her. How old would that baby be now? Lily whispered. But she already knew. She already knew, and she couldn't make herself say it. Grace left about 19 years ago, Michael said quietly. The baby was just under a year old. No. Lily was shaking her head, backing up the photo pressed to her chest, so hard the frame edge cut her palm. No, that's just a story. That's a coincidence. Lots of people are named Lily. Lots of people. Turn the picture over, Michael said gently. Read me the handwriting again. My Lily always, Lily whispered. Now look at this. Michael reached into his jacket slow so she wouldn't spook and pulled out his phone. He scrolled, hands not quite steady, and turned the screen to her. It was an old photo, a photo of a photo, cracked and faded clearly, a picture somebody had kept for 20 years. A young woman laughing, a leather jacket around her shoulders that was too big for her, a man's arm around her, Danny's arm. Lily would understand later, and the woman was beyond any doubt, beyond any possibility of coincidence, the same woman holding the baby in Lily's photograph. Grace Weller, Lily's mother. That's Danny's phone background, Michael said, his voice breaking. It's been my background since we buried him. I've looked at that face every single day for 11 years, and I never once thought I'd see it again in the flesh. He looked up at Lily, and the biggest, hardest man in the city had tears running openly down into his beard. But I'm looking at it right now. You've got her eyes. You've got her whole face. Lily, sweetheart, you're Grace's girl. You're Danny Weller's niece. The world tilted. Lily heard a roaring in her ears, and it wasn't the river, and it wasn't the bikes. It was 19 years of nobody, 19 years of you've got no one, 19 years of a closed file and a sealed history, and every adult telling her she was better off not knowing, and all of it was a lie. She hadn't had no one. She'd had an uncle, a whole world of people who'd look for her, who'd never stop looking, who'd have moved the earth to find her, and they never had. You look at her for years, she said, and her voice came out strange, thin, dangerous. You just said, you all looked for years. We did. Then where were you? It cracked out of her like a whip, and everyone on the street flinched. Where were you when I aged out with a garbage bag of clothes and nowhere to go? Where were you every night under that bridge? Where were you when I was 9 and they moved me for the 4th time and I cried myself sick because I didn't have one single person? You said you looked for years. She was crying now, furious, decades of it coming up all at once. Well, I was in the system. I wasn't hiding. My mother was gone by then. I don't even remember her. I was right there in your own city, in foster homes with my real name on a file marked, sealed, and nobody came. You want me to believe you'd have moved heaven and earth. You didn't move a curb. Lily. Victoria reached for her. No. She jerked away. Don't do the nice voice. I did fine being nobody. Okay, I did fine. I had a system for it. And now you tell me I had an uncle who loved babies and a whole family and they were right here the whole time and her voice shattered completely. I could have had somebody. I could have had somebody this whole time and instead I had a bridge. And Michael Hayes took the worst blow of the whole thing without defending himself once. You're right, he said. That stopped her. You're right, he said again, standing wiping his face with the back of his hand and not caring who saw. We didn't find you, and there's no version of that I get to make okay. But I'm going to tell you why, and then you can hate me all you want, and I'll deserve it. He took a breath. When Grace ran, she didn't just leave. She changed the baby's last name. She wanted you gone from us so bad she scrubbed the Weller off you. In every system, in every file, you weren't Lily Weller. You were Lily Carter. And Carter was a name none of us had ever heard because Grace made it up to keep you from us. We spent 11 years looking for a Lily Weller who didn't exist on a single piece of paper anywhere in this country. We were looking for a ghost with the wrong name. His voice broke. She hid you so well, she hid you from your own family, even from the ones who'd have loved you. She thought she was protecting you. And it cost you everything, and it cost us you. And there's not a day I won't be sorry for a thing I didn't even know I was failing to do. Lily stood there chest heaving, and the fury had nowhere to go. Because you can't stay furious at a man who won't fight back, who just stands there and takes it and agrees with you and cries. Danny, she said finally in a small voice, you said we buried him 11 years ago, so he never stopped looking, Michael said quietly. Right up to the end. He kept your baby blanket in his saddlebag for years. He used to say if he ever found you, he'd know you anywhere because you had Grace's eyes. He had to stop gather himself. He died in a crash on 40 out past the reservoir. Rain just like last night. And I swear to you, Lily, the last real conversation I ever had with that man, he told me, he said, Mikey, if I go before I find her, you keep looking. You bring my Lily home. Michael's whole body shook. And I told him I would, and then I gave up. 11 years I've been walking around a man who broke a promise to a dying friend. He looked at her wrecked, and then last night a homeless girl pulled my wife off the road, and it turns out she's you. You came home on your own. You found us. I couldn't find you in 11 years, and you found us in one night. Something cracked open in Lily then that had been sealed shut a lot longer than any file. Because she understood suddenly what it meant. Danny Weller had died in the rain looking for her uncle, a man who kept her baby blanket in his saddlebag, a man who'd loved her enough to spend his whole life searching and who'd died with her name in his mouth. And last night in the rain, she had run out and saved a woman's life, Danny's brother's wife, though she hadn't known it, and in doing so she had brought herself home. He kept my blanket, she whispered. 11 years. Somebody kept my blanket for 11 years. Lily said it like she was testing whether the words could hold weight. Somebody wanted me that whole time. Everybody on this road wanted you, Victoria said, and her voice was thick. You just didn't know we existed, and we didn't know where to look. But you were never nobody, Lily, not for 1 second of your whole life. You were a Weller. You were Danny's girl. You were loved by people who were tearing the world apart trying to find you. And the only reason you didn't feel it is because your mama loved you enough to hide you from the very people who would have died for you. She reached out, and this time Lily let her take her face in both hands, IV, tube and all. That's the cruelest, most loving thing anybody ever did to a child. And it's done now. It's over. You're found. You hear me? You're found. And Lily Carter, who had made peace with being nobody, put her forehead against the shoulder of a woman she'd met in a thunderstorm the night before her aunt, though not by blood, by something maybe stronger, and finally let herself be held by her family. The bikers on Kessler Street didn't cheer this time. They took off their hats. Every single one of them, 300 hard men and women, pulled the caps off their heads and stood bareheaded in the wet morning for Danny Weller's girl come home at last. It should have been at the end of the hard part. It wasn't, because Miss Reyes was still standing by her sedan, and she had heard every word, and Lily saw her face and knew with that old animal knowing that the woman had just watched a hero's story turn into something far more complicated. Miss Carter. Reyes' voice was careful now, official, and it cut through the moment like cold water. Or I suppose we'll need to sort out the name. Given what I've just heard, I have to be honest with you about where this goes now. Because you've just told me in front of witnesses that you're the biological relative of a documented member of this organization. And that changes things. Michael turned slow. Changes what? There are old case files, Reyes said. Sealed ones from when this Ms. Carter first entered the system as an infant. I flagged them this morning. I hadn't read them yet. She held up her phone. I have now, and there's a reason her mother's location was never disclosed. There's a reason the file was sealed and not just closed. She looked at Lily and there was something almost like pity in it, which was worse than anything. Your mother didn't just run to give you a normal life, Lily. There was a protective order. There was an open investigation. Your mother went to the authorities about something before she disappeared. About this club, and the file was sealed to protect a witness, to protect her, and by extension, you. The street went dead silent. That's a lie, Michael said, but his voice wasn't sure, and everyone heard that it wasn't sure. I'm reading it off the screen, Reyes said quietly. I'm not making it up, Mr. Hayes. 19 years ago, Grace Weller walked into a county office with an infant and made a statement about criminal activity connected to this organization and requested protection and then vanished into a private relocation before it ever went anywhere. That's why nobody could find her. Not because she changed a last name, because the county hid her from you on purpose, because she was afraid of you. And Lily watched Michael Hayes's face fall apart in an entirely new way. Not grief now, but something like horror. And she understood that the story had turned again, and that the family she'd just been handed might have been the very thing her mother had spent her life running from. What did she say we did? Michael said. His voice was hollow. Grace, what's in that file? What did she accuse us of? Reyes hesitated. I can't disclose the contents of a sealed... What did she say we did? It boomed off the underside of the bridge, and even the river seemed to flinch. Reyes flinched too, but she held her ground, and what she said next put ice in Lily's veins. She said she witnessed a man from your club kill someone, Reyes said quietly. And she said if she ever came forward, or if she was ever found, they'd kill her too. And the man she named, Reyes stopped, looked at her screen, looked up at Michael Hayes with something new and frightened in her eyes. The man she named in that statement, Mr. Hayes, it's you. I am. Lily's whole world went white. No, she heard herself say it from very far away. No, that's he saved me. He was kind. He cried. Lily. Michael's voice was terrible. He hadn't moved. He was staring at Reyes like she'd run him through. Lily, look at me. Look at me right now. She did. She couldn't help it. I did not kill anybody. I have done things in my life I'm not proud of. I have hurt people. I have broken laws, and I won't stand here and pretend I'm a clean man. But I never killed a soul, and I would sooner cut off my own hands than hurt Grace Weller, because Grace was Danny's sister, and Danny was my brother, and there is no world, Lily, where I hurt that family. His voice was shaking so hard he could barely get it out. Somebody told her something. Somebody used my name, or somebody in that county cooked that file. I don't know. But I am telling you in front of God and every person on this road, in the memory of a man I loved that I never touched, Grace, and I never killed anybody. And if you need to walk away from me right now to be safe, then you walk and I won't chase you. Same as I promised. But it is not true. And Lily Carter stood in the middle of Kessler Street, torn straight down the center, with a mother's terrified accusation in one hand and a weeping man's oath in the other, and no way on earth to know which one to believe. Somebody's lying, she whispered. Somebody in this is lying to me. My whole life, somebody's been lying to me. She looked at Reyes. She looked at Michael. She looked at the photograph of her mother, my Lily, always a woman who'd been so afraid she'd erased her own daughter from the world. And I don't know how to tell anymore. I never learned. Nobody ever told me the truth long enough for me to learn how it sounds. Then we find out, Victoria said. Everyone looked at her. She was gray as ash, sagging her leg, giving out, but her eyes were blazing. We don't guess. We don't take sides in the dark. We find out. That file's got a name in it besides my husband is the person killed, the date, the case number. Grace made a statement. Statements have detail. Reyes, you're gonna help this girl get the truth. The real truth, the whole file unsealed, because she is 19 years old and she has the right to know what happened to her own mother and whether the man offering her a home is the man her mother ran from. Victoria's voice cracked like a rifle. And if it turns out my husband did what that file says, then I'll drive Lily out of this state myself and I'll never look back. But if he didn't, if somebody framed a good man and used a scared young mother to do it and cost this girl her whole childhood and cost Danny his sister and cost my husband 11 years of guilt for a promise he thought he broke. She was crying now, furious and unstoppable. Then somebody's going to answer for it. Somebody has been sitting on a lie for 19 years and it ends now, and it ends with her. She pointed at Lily, because she is the only person alive who can make anybody care enough to open that file. Reyes looked at the girl, at the family, at the 300 bareheaded bikers, at her own clipboard, which had never in her career held anything remotely like this. If I pull the full file, she said slowly, I could lose my job. Sealed witness records 19 years old. Then lose it doing one right thing, Dorothy said from the embankment, instead of keeping it doing 100 wrong ones. You clicked that pen at this baby like she was a problem to file. Now you got a chance to be the one person in a suit who actually helped her. Take it. For a long moment, Ms. Reyes stood there with the whole weight of it on her, an ordinary woman who'd come to move a homeless girl along and had instead walked into the center of a 19-year-old lie. Then she looked at Lily, and something in her decided. Lily, she said, if we do this, if we unseal your mother's statement, you have to understand. You might find out he's telling the truth. Or you might find out you just said okay to living in the home of the man your mother died afraid of. I can't promise you which. Once it's open, it's open. Are you sure you want to know? And every soul on Kessler Street went silent and waited. And Lily Carter, the girl who'd spent 19 years being better off not knowing, looked down at the photograph of the mother who'd loved her enough to hide her from the whole world and made the bravest choice of her life. Open it, she said. Lily, Michael started. I have to know. She was crying, but her voice didn't waver. I've been nobody with no history my whole life because everybody decided I was better off not knowing. Never again. I don't care if it breaks my heart. I don't care if it takes away the only family I ever got offered. I would rather know the worst true thing than keep living inside a nice lie. She turned to Michael, and her eyes were her mother's eyes, and they went straight through him. And if you're telling the truth, then you'll want it open too. So prove it. Open the file. Let's find out together who's been lying to me my whole life. Michael Hayes looked at Danny Weller's niece. This girl with Grace's face demanding the truth in the middle of the road where she'd saved his wife, and something settled in his ruined face. Resolve. Open it, he told Reyes. All of it, every page, and God help whoever's name is really in there. Because if it's not mine, his voice dropped to something low and terrible, then I've got 19 years of questions for whoever put it there, and I am going to get my answers. Reyes lifted her phone, dialed, put it to her ear, and Lily Carter stood in the middle of Kessler Street holding her mother's photograph, waiting to learn whether she'd just come home or walk straight into the arms of the thing her mother had died trying to save her from. The phone rang twice before someone picked up, and the whole street heard Reyes say the words that would either save Michael Hayes or bury him. This is Reyes badge 419. I need an emergency unseal on a witness protection file 19 years old, and I need a supervisor's authorization on the line. It's connected to an active matter. A pause. Yes, I'll hold. No, don't hang up. This one can't wait. She held, and the whole world held with her. Lily stood there with her mother's photograph pressed to her sternum, and she watched Michael Hayes' face, and she made herself a promise she didn't say out loud. Whatever's in that file, I'm going to watch his eyes when he hears it. You can lie with your mouth. You can lie with tears, even. But I've spent 19 years reading faces in the half second before people decide to lie to me. If he did it, I'll see it, and I'll run, and this time I won't stop. Michael, she said quietly, while she's holding, tell me about my mother, the real her, not the file, not the ghost you looked for. Who was she? And Michael Hayes, knowing his fate was on hold on the other end of a phone, did something that told Lily more than any file could. He didn't defend himself. He didn't argue his case. He just answered her question. She was funny, he said, and a broken smile crossed his face. God, she was funny, sharp as a blade. She used to sit on the back steps of the clubhouse and roast every one of us so bad we'd be crying laughing. Danny couldn't win an argument with her to save his life, and he was the toughest man I knew. He wiped his face. She loved music. She'd sing while she cooked badly, so badly, and dare anybody to say something. She hated the club, but she loved her brother more than she hated it, so she stayed close even though it scared her. And when she got pregnant with you, his voice thickened. Something changed in her. She got fierce. She said no kid of hers was going to grow up smelling gasoline and fear. And I remember thinking that's the most Grace thing in the world. She loved you so much, she was willing to lose everybody, including the brother she adored, to give you a clean life. Lily's throat closed. She sang badly. Terrible, Michael said, half a laugh, half a sob. The worst. I do that, Lily whispered. I sing when it's cold and I'm scared under the bridge. I sing to make myself less scared, and I'm awful at it. Dorothy used to tell me to knock it off. She pressed a hand over her mouth. I got that from her. I got something from her, and I never even knew it was hers. And Michael Hayes looked at Danny Weller's niece singing her mother's bad songs under a bridge, her whole childhood unaware she was carrying a dead woman's habit like a locket, and he had to turn away for a second because it was too much. Yes, a voice said suddenly through the phone, tinny and official, and everyone snapped back. Reyes lifted a hand for silence. Yes, I'm here. You're authorizing the unseal. I need it verbal and logged. A pause. Understood. Read me the witness statement. Start with the named subject of the accusation. I have interested parties present, so read it plain. She put it on speaker. And a bored county voice 1,000 miles from Kessler Street began to read a dead woman's fear out loud into the wet morning air. Statement of Grace Weller, the voice began. Recorded a date 19 years gone. Subject states she wishes to enter protection with her infant daughter. Subject states she witnessed a homicide committed by a member of the motorcycle organization known as the club's name, and every biker on that road went rigid. Subject names the perpetrator as, the voice paused to read. Lily stopped breathing. She was watching Michael's face, watching his eyes. Now, right now. Whatever your face does in this next second, I'll believe that and nothing else. The perpetrator as one Mikey. And Lily saw Michael Hayes flinch like he'd been shot, and then she saw something else cross his face fast under the horror, something that wasn't guilt at all. It was confusion, then recognition, then a dawning, terrible understanding. Mikey, Reyes repeated. The statement names the man as Mikey. Mr. Hayes, that's not me, Michael said. His voice had gone strange. Read the rest. Read the description. Grace knew me. Grace knew me 20 years. If she was naming me, she'd have said Michael Hayes. She'd have said the president. She'd have said my whole name and my face. Read what she said about him. Reyes leaned toward the phone. Continue. Physical description of the subject named Mikey. The board voice read, subject describes perpetrator as young, early 20s, red hair, a scar through the left eyebrow, newly patched into the club, known to her only by the road name Mikey. Subject states she does not know his legal name. And the entire street exhaled at once because Michael Hayes was 52 years old and had never in his life had red hair and had no scar through his eyebrow and had been the president of that chapter. Not a kid newly patched in, and Grace Weller had known him for 20 years. It's not me, Michael breathed. Oh, thank God. It was never me. She never accused me. She accused a kid, a red-headed kid named Mikey. But then his face changed again, and the relief curdled into something worse. Michael, Victoria said slowly, you know who that is. I can see it. You know exactly who that is. Michael Hayes had gone white as bone. Read the date of the homicide again, he said hoarsely. Reyes read it, and Michael Hayes closed his eyes, and when he opened them, there was 19 years of something terrible in them. I know who Mikey is, he said. Red hair, scar through the eyebrow, patched in that same year. He looked at Lily and his voice shook. His name was Mikey Doyle, and he didn't stay a nobody kid, Lily. He climbed high, because Mikey Doyle is the name that red-headed kid went by 20 years ago. Michael's jaw clenched. These days he goes by Sergeant Michael Doyle, County Sheriff's Office. He's been the department's liaison to organized crime for 12 years. The silence that fell was absolute. The man who killed somebody in front of my mother, Lily said very slowly, feeling her way through it like a dark room. The man she ran from, the man she named, grew up to be a cop. And not just any cop, Reyes whispered, and her face had gone gray because she just understood something about her own department. The liaison to organized crime. The man who would have oversight on who would have access to sealed files, Michael finished. Witness files, relocation records. He looked at Reyes. You flagged Grace's file this morning. Who did that flag go to? Who gets notified when somebody pulls a 19-year-old sealed witness statement connected to this club? Reyes's phone was still in her hand. It buzzed. She looked down at the screen, and every drop of color left her face, and she turned it slowly so Lily could see the name lighting up the incoming call. Sergeant M. Doyle. Bisarm. Nobody moved. The phone buzzed in Reyes's hand, insistent, obscene. He knows, Reyes whispered. The unseal request pinged his desk. He knows somebody just opened Grace Weller's file. After 19 years. Her hand was shaking. He knows we know. Don't answer it, Michael said. If I don't answer, he'll know something's wrong. He already knows something's wrong, that's why he's calling. Michael's voice had dropped into something low and lethal, the voice that had made a whole city step off the sidewalk for 30 years. Think, 19 years ago, a kid named Mikey Doyle killed somebody in front of Grace Weller. Grace ran to the county. Grace's statement got sealed, and then Grace vanished so completely that her own family couldn't find her for 19 years. You think that's because the county's so good at hiding people? He shook his head, slowly. That kid grew up and got himself a badge and put himself in charge of exactly the files that could hang him. He didn't hide Grace to protect her. He hid her so nobody could ever find the one witness who could put him away. And when she died, Michael stopped, looked at Lily. His voice gentled and broke at once. Lily, your mother. How do you know how she died? Lily shook her head numb. Car accident. That's all anybody ever told me. When I was little, before foster care. That's why I went into the system. She died and there was nobody, and a car accident, Michael repeated softly. In a private relocation nobody was supposed to be able to find. Overseen by a department where the man she'd accused had just gotten a badge. Lily's legs went out from under her. 2 bikers caught her before she hit the ground. No, she said. No, you're saying you can't be saying, I'm saying I don't believe in coincidences that convenient, Michael said grimly. And I'm saying we're not going to guess. We're going to know, same as you wanted, all the way to the bottom. The phone stopped buzzing. For 1 second, there was relief. Then it started again immediately, and this time a text banner slid across the top of the screen, and Reyes read it out loud in a voice gone thin with fear. Reyes, pick up. That file is a live officer safety matter. Whoever's with you is dangerous. Tell me your location and stand by for units. He's coming, Reyes breathed. He's going to send units. He's going to spin it so the club looks like the threat, so you look like the threat, Michael, and he'll show up with a badge and backup and a story about protecting a homeless girl from a dangerous gang. And who's the county going to believe, a decorated sergeant or the Hells Angels? Michael finished. Yeah, I know exactly how this looks. I've been on the wrong side of how things look my whole life. He turned to Lily, and for the first time there was something like fear in him, but it wasn't fear for himself. Lily, listen to me fast because we don't have long. If Doyle gets here first, he holds all the cards. He's got the badge, he's got the story, and he's got 19 years of practice bearing this. The only thing he doesn't have, Michael's eyes locked on hers, is you, Grace's daughter, alive, standing up, with her mother's face and her mother's file finally open. You're the one thing that can undo 19 years of his work, which means the second he understands who you are. I'm the loose end, Lily said. The words came out flat and cold. She understood loose ends. She'd been treated like one her whole life. I'm the thing that has to disappear like she did. Not while I'm breathing, Michael said. Not while any of us are breathing. He raised his voice and it rolled down Kessler Street like thunder. You all heard it. Every one of you heard what came off that phone. Danny's sister got run off the road 19 years ago by a coward who's been wearing a badge ever since. And this, he put his hand on Lily's shoulder. This is Danny's blood. This is our blood. And there is a man on his way here right now who thinks he can make her disappear the way he made her mama disappear. The rumble that went through 300 bikers was not a cheer. It was something much older and much colder. He is going to find out, Michael said quietly, what it costs to come for one of ours. But Lily wasn't listening to the roar of the club anymore. She'd gone very still and very clear the way she used to go under the bridge when everything was falling apart and panicking would get her killed. And in that clear, cold place, she saw the whole shape of it. No, she said. It cut through everything. Michael turned. No, she said again louder. You can't fight him. Don't you see that's exactly what he wants? If 300 bikers meet a cop on this road, he wins. He's got his story handed to him. Dangerous gang, terrified officer, and somewhere in the chaos, the homeless girl gets hurt and nobody's surprised because look at the company she was keeping. You throw a punch, you touch him, you so much as look wrong, and he buries all of us and me right along with it. Her voice was shaking, but her eyes were her mother's, fierce and clear. My mother tried to fight him with the truth and the county buried her. You want to fight him with fists and he'll bury you too. That's not how you beat a man like this. Then how, Michael said. You tell me how, because I am not letting him near you. Lily looked around the street, at the flyers on every pole with her name, at the 300 phones and 300 jackets, at Reyes who had a live line to the county and a conscience she'd just found, at a whole city that for the first time in her life was looking at her. And the girl who had spent 19 years desperate to be invisible understood at last the terrible power of finally being seen. You don't hide me, she said slowly. That's the whole thing. That's what he's counting on, that I'm a nobody who can be made to disappear quiet in the dark like she was. So we do the opposite of quiet. We do the opposite of dark. She looked at Reyes. How many people know a homeless girl saved the queen of the Hells Angels last night? The whole city, bum, Reyes said slowly. It's been on the news since dawn, the flyers. Then get the news back here, Lily said. Right now. Get the cameras. Get every reporter you called this morning. Because a man can make a nobody disappear in the dark. Her voice rose, and it did not shake anymore. But he cannot make a hero disappear on live television, Oma. He cannot run me off a road with 300 witnesses and every camera in the city pointed at my face. The only way he wins is if I'm invisible. So we make me the most visible person in this whole state. We tell the truth so loud and so bright that burying it kills him instead of me. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Dorothy started to laugh, a cracked, delighted, wondering laugh up from the embankment. Lord have mercy, she said. Grace's girl. You raised a general Grace wherever you are. You hear this child? She's gonna beat him with the one thing he took from her. She's gonna beat him with being seen. And Michael Hayes looked at Danny Weller's niece, 19, homeless, motherless, orphan, by the very man now speeding toward them as she took the weapon that had been used against her whole life and turned it around in her hands. Get the cameras, he said to Reyes, and there was awe in it. You heard the girl. Get every camera in the city. We're going to do this in the light. They had 11 minutes. Reyes made the calls, the newsroom that had run the flyer story at dawn, the reporter who'd been trying to reach Michael Hayes all morning, the wire desk. She said 11 words that emptied a newsroom. The homeless hero has been found and she's about to speak. Michael made his own calls, not for violence, for witnesses. Within minutes, the word had gone out through 300 phones and out beyond them, and the bikes came not to fight, but to stand, to be the wall of witnesses that darkness cannot work behind. More and more of them rolling in from every corner of the city until Kessler Street was packed shoulder to shoulder with leather and chrome and 300 faces that would everyone swear to what they were about to see. And Lily stood in the middle of it, shaking with her mother's photograph in her hand and Victoria's arm around her, and she rehearsed the truth in her head because she was going to have to say it out loud to a camera, to a city with the man who killed her mother, possibly standing 10 feet away in a uniform. I can't, she whispered to Victoria. I've never talked to more than one person at a time in my life. I hide. That's what I do. That's the only thing I've ever been good at. I can't stand up in front of the whole city and... You lifted a 400-pound motorcycle off a stranger in a thunderstorm, Victoria said. Don't tell me what you can't do. She turned Lily to face her. Your mother went to the county alone with a baby on her hip and told the truth about the most dangerous thing she'd ever seen, and it cost her everything. She was terrified, and she did it anyway because she thought it might protect you. Victoria's voice broke. You've got one chance to finish what she started. She whispered the truth into a sealed file, and they buried it for 19 years. You're going to say it out loud where the whole world can hear, and nobody is ever going to bury it again. That's not revenge, baby. That's the last thing your mama ever tried to do, and you get to finish it for her. Lily looked at the photograph. My Lily always. Okay, she whispered. The same words she'd said on this same road an hour ago. Okay, I'll do it in the light. And that was when the first news van rounded the corner. And 30 seconds behind it from the other direction came a county sheriff's SUV running silent. No lights, no siren. A man arriving quiet the way you arrive when you're planning to control a scene and not be part of a spectacle. It rolled to a stop at the edge of the crowd. The door opened, and a man got out in a pressed sheriff's uniform, silver at the temples now, but the hair underneath still unmistakably damningly red, and a thin white scar cutting through his left eyebrow. And he took in the news vans and the cameras and the 300 bikers, and his face did something very fast and very controlled. Sergeant Michael Doyle had come to manage a quiet problem in the dark. He had walked into the brightest light in the city. Everybody, stay calm, Doyle called out. His voice smooth, practiced already, spinning the story already, reaching for the badge on his belt to show the cameras who the authority was here. I'm Sergeant Doyle County Liaison. I've got a report of a dangerous situation and a vulnerable young woman who needs to come with me for her own. Her name is Lily Weller. Michael Hayes' voice rolled down the street, and the cameras swung toward it, and Doyle's smooth patter stopped dead. Her mother, Michael said, loud clear for every lens, was Grace Weller. And 19 years ago, Grace Weller walked into the county and named the man who murdered someone in front of her. And that man's name? Michael turned and looked directly at the sheriff, and 300 bikers turned with him. And every camera followed. Was Mikey Doyle. Young, red hair, scar through the left eyebrow. A beat. Sergeant, you want to take your hat off for the cameras, show everybody that scar. And Lily, watching from the center of the crowd, saw it happen. She saw Sergeant Michael Doyle's face for one single unguarded half second before the training slammed back down over it, do the exact thing she'd been watching Michael Hayes' face for all along. She saw guilt. Naked, ancient, cornered guilt. And she stepped out of the crowd, into the light, into the cameras, into the space between 300 bikers and the man who had made her an orphan. And she held up her mother's photograph so the lenses could see it, and she said the truest thing she had ever said in her life. You knew my mother, Lily said, and her voice did not shake. You've been hiding what you did to her for 19 years. You made her disappear so nobody would ever find the one person who saw. And you almost won. She lifted her chin, and her mother's eyes blazed out of her face on live television. But you missed one thing. You missed me. I'm the one you couldn't find. I'm the baby on her hip in this picture. I'm Grace Weller's daughter, and I'm not sealed, and I'm not hidden, and I'm not in the dark anymore. The whole city was watching now. The whole city could see her. So say it to my face, Sergeant, in front of everyone, in the light. Tell me what you did to my mother. And Sergeant Michael Doyle stood frozen in the brightest light of his life. 19 years of buried truth closing in from every camera in the city with nowhere left to make a witness disappear. Because this time the witness was standing in front of the whole world, and the whole world was finally looking. Sergeant Michael Doyle did what cornered men with badges always do. He reached for authority. This is harassment, he said, and his voice was steady. God, he was good at this, 19 years of practice. This is a criminal organization intimidating a peace officer, and this young woman is clearly being manipulated. Ma'am, he turned to Lily and he softened. It made it kind, made it fatherly, and it was the most frightening thing Lily had ever seen because she recognized it. She'd had that exact voice used on her by 100 people who wanted something. I understand you've had a hard life. I've read your file. You've been let down by a lot of people, but these men are using you. Come with me, and I'll make sure you're safe from them. And for one terrible second, it almost worked, because it was the oldest trick in Lily's whole world, the kind voice, the I'll keep you safe, the offer of rescue from the people who actually loved her. She'd fallen for it her whole life, but she'd also spent her whole life learning to tell the difference between the voice and the face. You read my file, Lily said slowly. When? Doyle didn't miss a beat. This morning when the situation was flagged. No. Lily took a step toward him into the cameras, and her voice rang out clear. You said you read my file. My file. But Ms. Reyes hadn't even pulled my sealed history until an hour ago. She said so right here in front of everybody. So how does a man read a file this morning that didn't get unsealed until an hour ago? She let it land. Let the cameras have it. Unless you'd already read it a long time ago. Unless you've been watching that file for 19 years, waiting for the day somebody finally opened it. The street went dead silent. And Doyle's smooth, practiced, careful Doyle made his first mistake. His eyes flicked just for a heartbeat to Reyes, checking, calculating what she'd said, what she could prove. It was the look of a man who knew exactly which file she meant. Reyes saw it, and something in the caseworker, who'd come to move a homeless girl along, broke wide open. He's right that I have his access logs, she said suddenly loud, holding up her phone with a hand that shook. Because I'm looking at them. The unseal I filed an hour ago, it's got a viewing history attached. Every time that file's been accessed in 19 years. Her voice climbed. And it's been accessed 11 times, Sergeant. 11, all by the same badge number. Yours. Once a year, almost to the week. Every year on the anniversary of when Grace Weller filed it, somebody with your badge number opened her sealed statement, looked at it, and closed it again. She looked up white as paper. You've been checking on your secret every single year for 19 years, making sure she stayed buried. A sound went through the crowd, low and terrible. That proves nothing, Doyle said, but his voice had cracked for the first time. A liaison reviews organized crime files as part of, on the same date every year, Reyes said. The exact anniversary, a woman you claim you never met. Lily watched him. She watched his hands. And she saw the exact moment Sergeant Michael Doyle understood he was losing control of the light, and she saw his hand drift slow and casual toward the weapon on his belt. He's reaching, she said sharp, and 300 bikers went rigid. Everybody stays exactly where they are, Doyle barked, and now the mask was slipping. Now the smooth was gone, and something older and more frightened was showing through. Nobody move. This is an officer safety situation, and I am authorized to... Authorized to what? Michael Hayes said quietly. He hadn't moved. None of them had. And that was the terror of it, 300 of the most feared people in the state, and not one of them had raised a hand because Lily had told them not to, and they'd listened. Draw on a 19-year-old girl holding a photograph on live television with 40 cameras on you. He shook his head slowly. You spent 19 years learning how to make people disappear in the dark, Mikey. But you never learned what to do in the light. Because in the light, you got nothing. In the light, you're just a man with a scar through his eyebrow and 11 visits to a dead woman's file standing in front of the whole world with his hand on his gun. Doyle's hand froze on the weapon. And Lily, in that frozen second, understood something that changed the shape of her forever. She understood that this man, this terrifying man, who'd haunted her whole life without her even knowing his name, was underneath the badge exactly what she'd always been. He was afraid. He'd built an entire life out of being afraid of being seen. He'd killed to stay invisible. He'd made her mother vanish to stay invisible. He'd checked that file 11 times every year, jumping at his own shadow. He was a nobody who'd never stopped running. And she was done running. You want to know the difference between you and me, Lily said, and her voice carried down the whole street clear as a bell. We both spent our whole lives hiding. You hid what you did. I hid what I was. But I got tired of the dark, Sergeant. An hour ago, I stopped hiding. And look, she spread her arms, the photograph in one hand, 300 people at her back, 40 cameras on her face. The second I stepped into the light, I stopped being alone. That's what you never understood. Hiding doesn't keep you safe. Hiding keeps you alone. And you've been alone for 19 years with a dead woman and a secret, and I've been found for one single day, and I already have more family than you'll ever have. Doyle's hand came off the gun, not because he chose to, because it simply fell, the fight going out of his arm, the whole 19-year architecture of the lie collapsing in on itself right there in the street. You don't understand, he said, and his voice had changed completely. Now gone thin, gone young, gone back to the 22-year-old red-headed kid he'd been. It was an accident, the first one. It was a fight, it went wrong. I never meant, and she saw, your mother saw, and I was 22, and I panicked, and I thought my whole life was over, and I just needed her to not say her name, Lily said. Doyle stopped. You've said she and your mother this whole time, Lily said. said, and tears were running down her face now, but her voice was iron. Say her name. She had a name. Say it. Grace, Doyle whispered. And what did you do to Grace? Lily took another step. Not the man in the fight. Grace, my mother. She ran to the county and told the truth, and then she disappeared and died in an accident nobody could explain in a town nobody was supposed to be able to find. Say what you did to her. In the light, in front of everyone. You've carried it 19 years. I've carried the empty space where she should have been for 19 years. Put it down, Sergeant. Say it and put it down. And Sergeant Michael Doyle on live television, surrounded by the light he'd spent his whole life avoiding, broke. I found the relocation paperwork, he said, and it came out of him like something tearing loose. I had access. When I got the badge, I always looked. I had to know where she was, and I found her, and I told myself I just wanted to make sure she stayed quiet. That's all. Just make sure she never. And I drove out there just to talk. I swear to God, I just went to talk, to make her understand it was better for everyone if he was shaking. And she wouldn't. She said she was going to testify. She said she didn't care what it cost her, that she had a daughter, and she wasn't going to raise you in a world where a man could kill somebody and put on a badge and walk free. She said, his voice shattered. She said, my Lily deserves a world with the truth in it. Lily made a sound like she'd been struck. And then Doyle whispered she got in her car to drive to the county, and the road was wet, and you ran her off the road, Michael Hayes said, and his voice was the coldest thing on that street. I didn't mean for her to. Doyle's legs were going, now the badge suddenly the heaviest thing in the world. I just wanted to stop the car, to talk, and it was raining, and she went off the road, and by the time I got down there, he couldn't finish. He didn't have to. There was a baby seat in the back, empty. You weren't in the car. She'd left you with a neighbor to make the drive. He looked up at Lily, wrecked, ruined, a monster and a coward and a broken old man all at once. I've thought about that empty baby seat every single day for 19 years. I told myself if you'd been in that car too, I told myself at least the baby lived. Like that made it like anything made it. It doesn't, Lily said. No, Doyle whispered. It doesn't. And that was it. That was the whole confession spoken into 40 cameras broadcast to a city, the sealed truth of 19 years, finally out in the open air, where nothing could ever bury it again. 2 county cars had arrived during the confession. Real ones Reyes had called ones with officers who had heard the whole thing over the live feed already spreading across every phone in the department. They came through the crowd, and the crowd let them through, and Sergeant Michael Doyle did not run because there was nowhere left in the whole lit-up world for a man like him to hide. He held out his own wrists. Grace Weller, one of the officers said, and even he sounded shaken. And the murder of, we'll get the name from the film, Michael Doyle, you're under arrest. And as they walked him past Lily, he stopped, just for a second. And he looked at Grace Weller's daughter, at her mother's face, at the photograph in her hand. She'd be proud of you, he said, for doing what she couldn't in the light. Don't, Lily said quietly. You don't get to say that. You lost the right to say anything about her 19 years ago. She held his eyes. But you're right, she would be, and that's not for you. That's for me. They took him away, in Kessler Street, 300 bikers, 40 cameras, one homeless girl who wasn't homeless anymore, stood in a silence that felt like the whole world exhaling at once. Then Lily Carter's legs finally gave out. 19 years of holding herself up, of staying invisible, of never letting anyone see her fall, and it all came down at once, right there in the middle of the road, and she folded toward the wet pavement. She never hit it. Michael Hayes caught her under one arm, and Victoria caught her under the other. Guy and Sling and all, and Dorothy came scrambling down the embankment, and 300 people surged in close, and for the first time in her entire life, Lily Carter fell, and a whole crowd of people caught her before she could hit the ground. I've got you, Victoria was saying over and over, holding her up. I've got you, baby. We've got you. You're not alone. You're never going to be alone again. And Lily Carter, Grace Weller's daughter, Danny Weller's niece, wept. Not the careful, quiet, hidden crying she'd taught herself under the bridge. Real crying, ugly and loud and unashamed, 19 years of it, and nobody told her to hush. Nobody told her to be smaller. Nobody walked past. 300 people just stood around her and let her cry, and some of them cried too, and the cameras kept rolling, and for once in Lily's life, being seen didn't feel like danger. It felt like being held. My mom, she sobbed into Victoria's shoulder. She died trying to make a world with the truth in it. For me. She died for me. She did, Victoria said, fiercely gripping her. And you just finished it. You hear me? You finished what she started 19 years and everybody forgot her. Everybody but the man who killed us, and today the whole city knows her name. Grace Weller. Today the whole world knows what your mother did and what it cost her and how brave she was. You didn't just get justice, baby. You gave her back her name. You made her seen. And Lily understood then that the two of them, the mother she couldn't remember, and the daughter left behind, had done the same brave thing 19 years apart. Grace had tried to tell the truth, and been buried for it. Lily had finished telling it and been lifted up. Same courage, same road even wet with the same kind of rain. But Lily hadn't had to do it alone, and that was the only difference, and it was the difference that was everything. The months that came after did not fix everything all at once, because real life doesn't work that way, and Lily's story was too true to pretend otherwise. She moved into the Hayes house, and it was hard. The first night she couldn't sleep in the bed. It was too soft, too safe, and safety felt like a trap her body didn't trust. She slept on the floor beside it for a week, and Victoria never once made her feel wrong for it, just left the door unlocked and a light on in the hall. You'll sleep in the bed when you're ready, Victoria said. And if that's a year from now, then it's a year from now. There's no wrong way to heal from being unloved for 19 years. There's just healing. The first family dinner, Lily sat at the table and couldn't eat because sitting at a table with people who wanted her there was so foreign it felt like a language she didn't speak. Michael saw her hands shaking around the fork. You know what Danny used to do at dinner, he said, easy, not looking right at her, giving her room. He'd steal food off everybody's plate, drove Grace crazy. She'd smack his hand with a spoon. He reached over casual and stole a roll off Lily's plate and took a bite. Weller family tradition. Now you gotta get me back. And Lily, 19 years old, trembling at a dinner table, looked at this enormous man who'd just stolen her bread on purpose so she'd have a family joke to belong to, and she reached over and stole his whole plate. And Michael Hayes laughed so hard he had to leave the table, and something in Lily's chest that had been clenched shut her entire life came loose one notch. That was how it went, one notch at a time. She went back to school. She was behind, and she was proud, and it was humbling, and she did it anyway. The club, 300 people who'd once been known only through fear, showed up to every single thing. When she got her GED, 40 motorcycles idled outside the testing center, and when she walked out with a certificate, they revved every engine at once, and Lily laughed and cried, and it was the loudest anyone had ever celebrated anything for her. They found out more about Grace, too, in the months after. The case reopened everything. Reyes, who did not lose her job, who instead became something like an aunt herself, the caseworker who'd finally chosen a person over a file, helped Lily get every record. And Lily learned that her mother had left a letter sealed with the file, meant for the daughter she was trying to protect, never delivered because the file was buried. Lily read it alone in the room that was finally hers on the night she finally slept in the bed. She never told anyone every word of it, but she told them the last line because she wanted them to hear it, because it explained everything. My Lily, her mother had written 19 years ago, terrified, brave, alone. I know I'm hiding you from people who love us, and I know someday you might hate me for the empty life it gives you. But I would rather you grow up with nothing and be safe than grow up with everything in a world where the truth can get you killed. Be brave, be seen, and know that everything I ever did, I did because you were the one thing in this world worth losing everything for. My Lily, always. She wanted me safe, Lily said, folding the letter, her voice steady now in a way it had never been at the start. She thought hiding me was the only way, and it cost me everything, and it cost her her life, and she was wrong about how to do it. She looked up at Victoria and Michael, at Dorothy, at her family. But she wasn't wrong about the thing that mattered. Be brave, be seen. She just didn't get to teach me how. So the world taught me instead. And I learned it on a road in the rain, the same kind of night she died on. Her jaw set. I'm not going to waste it. She didn't waste it, Lily. Carter. She kept the Carter in the end because it was her mother's gift, the name Grace had made up to keep her alive, and she decided it was a name worth keeping, and added the Wellerback beside it became something nobody who'd ever walked past a homeless girl under a bridge could have imagined. She became the one who didn't walk past. She started with the kids who aged out of foster care the way she had, 18 years old with a garbage bag of clothes and nowhere on earth to go. She knew exactly what that felt like, the specific terror of that first night when the system's door closes behind you and there's no one. And she made it her whole life's work that no kid in that city would face that night alone. The club backed her. 300 people who'd once been feared became 300 people who showed up, who gave rides and couches and job connections, and more than anything, who saw the kids everyone else had trained themselves not to see. You know what these kids need most? Lily said once, testifying in front of the county and the light in front of cameras, the way she'd learned she could. It's not just a bed, though they need that. It's not just money, though they need that too. It's one person who looks at them and doesn't see a case number or a problem or a statistic. She looked right into the camera. It's one person who looks at them and sees somebody worth staying for. I was a nobody in this city for 19 years. I had a whole family who'd have died for me, and I never knew because nobody looked hard enough to find the girl the system had marked sealed. Well, I'm looking now, and I'm going to keep looking for every single one of them. The program she built got her mother's name, the Grace Weller Foundation, and every kid who came through it heard the story of the homeless girl who saved a biker queen in a thunderstorm and turned out to be the queen's own family, the girl who beat a killer with nothing but the truth and the light. But that wasn't the part Lily made sure they remembered. The part that matters, she'd tell them, is that I was invisible and then somebody saw me and everything changed. That's it. That's the whole thing. You are not too far gone to be seen. You are not too broken to belong to somebody. And the day one person really sees you, she'd smile that real smile now, not the careful one. It can change your entire life. It changed mine. So let me be that person. Let me see you. And then someday you go see somebody else. Victoria healed. The leg took the better part of a year, and she walked with a cane after, and she said she didn't mind because the cane reminded her every single day of the girl who'd knelt in a thunderstorm and refused to let her die alone. She told the story often to reporters, to the club, to anyone who'd sit still. And she always told it the same way, and she always ended it the same way, and she never got through the ending with dry eyes. That girl thought she saved my life that night, Victoria would say. And she did. She lifted a 400-pound bike off my body with her bare hands, and she held my hand so I wouldn't die alone, and she gave me the only warm thing she owned. Victoria would pause here every time. But that's not the part she got wrong. What she never understood, what she couldn't have understood, because nobody had ever shown her what she was worth, is that she didn't just save me that night. And here Victoria would look at Lily wherever she was in the room, and her voice would break every single time. She saved all of us. A whole club of hard-scared, dangerous people who'd spent our whole lives being feared instead of loved. A caseworker who'd forgotten there was a person behind every file. A husband who'd spent 11 years thinking he had broken a promise to a dying friend. A dead woman whose name nobody remembered. And an old man with a badge who finally had to answer for what he did in the dark. Victoria would wipe her eyes. One homeless girl, one girl the whole world walked past, and she changed every single one of us because she chose to be kind on a night when nobody was watching, when kindness could have gotten her killed, when the easiest thing in the world would have been to stay invisible and let a stranger die. She'd shake her head, wondering every time, like she still couldn't believe it. That's what nobody ever tells you. The strongest person in the room is almost never the one with the power or the money or the reputation or the badge. It's the one who chooses to be kind when there's nothing in it for them and no one there to see. And Lily Carter, who had been nobody, who had been invisible, who had made peace with mattering to no one on this earth, would sit there in a room full of people who loved her, in a family she'd built out of a thunderstorm, and a terrible truth, and one unbearable act of courage. And she'd let them see her cry because she'd finally learned that being seen was not the danger she'd spent her whole life believing it to be. Being seen was the whole point. A girl with nothing had walked out into a storm and chosen kindness when no one was watching, and it had cost her nearly everything and given her back more than she'd ever dared to want. She had come into this world hidden by a mother's desperate love erased from every record, marked sealed, forgotten by a whole city for 19 years. And she had refused in the end to stay in the dark. She had stepped into the light and spoken the truth and finished what her mother started, and in doing so, she had proven the one thing the world had spent 19 years trying to teach her was a lie. She had always mattered. She had mattered all along. And so had every forgotten person the world had ever trained itself not to see. The Grace Weller Foundation grew, but Lily never let it get too big to see faces. That was the rule she made, the one she wouldn't bend on even when the money came, and the board wanted to talk about scale and metrics and reach. She'd sit in those meetings, a young woman who 3 years earlier had slept under a bridge, now at the head of a table, and she'd listen to all of it, and then she'd say the same thing every time. Every kid gets a home visit from a real person, not a form, not a phone call, a person who sits down across from them and looks them in the eye. She'd let it land. The day we stop doing that is the day we've become the thing that failed me. I'd rather help 100 kids and know all their names than help 10,000 and see none of them. And she meant it, and they knew she meant it because Lily Carter did the home visits herself every week. She'd pull up to some shelter, some couch, some kid's last night before the system's door closed on them, and she'd sit down on the floor if that's where the kid was, and she'd say the truest sentence she knew. I slept under a bridge on Kessler Street for 4 months. I know that face you're making. I made it too. And she'd watch the kid's guard crack just a little because you cannot lie to someone who's actually been where you are. So here's the thing nobody told me, and I'm telling you, you are not a problem to be managed. You're a person somebody hasn't found yet. And I found you, so you're stuck with me now. There was one kid that second winter that broke something open in her all over again. A boy, 17, named Theo. Angry the way Lily had been quiet, same wound, opposite armor. He'd been through 11 placements. He didn't believe a word out of anybody's mouth, and he told Lily so straight to her face the first time she sat down across from him. "You're gonna disappear," he said flatly. "Everybody does. You do the big speech, you do the visit, and then something better comes along and you're gone. I've heard the speech. I've heard it 11 times. Save it." And Lily didn't argue. She didn't do the speech. She just nodded. "You're right to think that," she said. "Everybody has disappeared on you. So there's no reason on earth you should believe I won't." She stood up. "So I'm not going to ask you to believe me. I'm just going to keep showing up until you can't help it." She showed up every week. He was cold to her for 2 months. She showed up anyway. She didn't push and she didn't quit. And around the 10th week when she walked in, Theo was watching the door. Just for a second, just watching to see if she'd come. And Lily saw it and she understood it because she'd been the girl watching the door her whole life waiting to be left, and she'd never once been the reason somebody looked up. Hoping. That night she cried in the car for 20 minutes before she could drive home. Not from sadness, from the almost unbearable weight of being for one kid the person who came back. Theo aged out that spring with a place to live and a person in his corner and a foundation full of people who knew his name. 2 years later, he was doing home visits himself. The first time Lily watched him sit down on the floor across from some furious, guarded kid and say, "I've heard the speech too, so I'm not going to give it," she had to leave the room. "That's it," Dorothy said, finding her in the hallway, wiping her eyes. Dorothy, who'd moved into a little apartment the foundation set up, who came to every graduation, who was family, now in every way that counted. "That's the whole thing right there, baby. That's what your mama meant, Shunk. Be seen, then go see somebody else. You saw that boy. Now he's seeing another one. That's how it goes on. That's how it never stops." "I keep waiting for it to feel finished," Lily said. "Like I'll fix enough of them and the hole in me will close." "It won't," Dorothy said gently. "The hole don't close, baby. That's not how it works. You just fill your life so full of people that you stop falling into it." She squeezed Lily's hand. "You've got a full life, Lily. Look at it. You've got more people than you can count. The bridge is way behind you now." The bridge. She went back to it once on the anniversary. Alone at first, she'd told Michael and Victoria she needed to do it by herself. And they'd understood because they'd learned by then that Lily's healing had its own map and you didn't rush her across it. She stood under the north pillar where the concrete stayed dry, where a scared, invisible girl had once made peace with mattering to no one. And she looked out at the road where a motorcycle had gone down in the rain, and changed the entire course of her life. I almost didn't go, she said out loud to her mother, to the memory to the girl she used to be. That night, I almost stayed right here and let you, she couldn't say die even now. I almost stayed invisible. I had the rule. Look at your shoes. Don't exist to them. Stay breathing. She wiped her face. And I broke it. I don't even fully know why. I just couldn't sit in the dark and listen to somebody be alone at the end. Because I knew what that was. I knew exactly what it was to be alone at the end, and I couldn't let it happen to somebody else. The river slapped the pillars, same as it always had. That's the thing nobody would ever have believed about me, Lily whispered. The most invisible person in the city. The one everybody walked past. Turns out I was the one who couldn't walk past you. When she turned to go, she wasn't alone. They'd come, quiet at a distance, giving her the space she'd asked for but not leaving her to it. Michael and Victoria and Dorothy and Reyes and Theo and a dozen others standing at the top of the embankment where the flyers had once hung with her name on them. They hadn't said a word. They'd just come so that when she climbed up out of the dark under that bridge for the last time, there would be people at the top waiting for her. There would always be people at the top waiting for her now. Lily climbed up out of the shadow of the bridge, and her family closed around her, and she did not look back because there was nothing left down there in the dark that she needed anymore. Michael Hayes told the story too in the years after, though he told it differently than Victoria did. He told it plainer. He told it to young men who came into the club thinking the patch was about being feared, and he'd sit them down and set them straight. You think this thing on your back makes people respect you? He'd say. It doesn't. It makes them scared. There's a difference, and it took me 50 years and a homeless girl to learn it. He'd lean in. The most respected person this club has ever known never wore a patch, never rode a bike, weighed a buck 10 soaking wet, and she earned more respect in one night in the rain than I earned in 30 years of making men step off the sidewalk. He'd let that sit, because she was strong where it counts, not in the fists, in the choosing. She chose to help when helping could have killed her on a night nobody was watching for a stranger she had every reason to fear. That's strength. Everything else is just noise. He'd found a piece Michael had that he'd been missing for 11 years. The promise to Danny bring my Lily home, he'd finally kept it even if she'd had to walk home herself, even if it had taken a thunderstorm and a tragedy to do it. He visited Danny's grave more now, brought Lily when she was ready, which took a while. The first time she stood at her uncle's headstone, the uncle who'd kept her baby blanket for 11 years, who'd died in the rain looking for her, she didn't cry. She'd expected to. Instead, she felt something steadier. He'd know me anywhere, she said. You told me that. He said if he ever found me, he'd know me anywhere because I had my mom's eyes. He would, Michael said, first glance. Lily put her hand on the cold stone. Then he knows me now, she said. Wherever he is. He found me. It just took a while and it happened backward, but he found me. She said it firmly, decided the way she said everything now. Nobody in my family stayed lost. My mom's name is known. My uncle kept his promise through you. And I'm home. Everybody got found in the end. And Sergeant Michael Doyle, he got exactly what 19 years of darkness had earned him. The confession was on 40 cameras. There was no burying it and no walking it back. The case that Grace Weller had died trying to bring finally came to trial 2 decades late, with her daughter in the front row every single day. Doyle went to prison for the rest of his life, and the department that had let him hide behind a badge was torn open and remade, and other sealed files got opened, and other buried truths came into the light, because a homeless girl had shown a whole city that darkness only works when nobody's brave enough to turn on a lamp. Lily went to the sentencing. People asked her why. She'd looked at them like the answer was obvious. Because my mother couldn't, she said. She should have been the one sitting there when he answered for it. She earned that. She died for that. So I'm going to sit in her seat and make sure her name is the last thing that man hears on the day the truth finally wins. And she did. When the sentence came down, Lily stood up in that courtroom, and she said clear enough for the whole room to hear. Her name was Grace Weller. Say it. Everybody in this room is going to remember her name. And they did. She never hated him in the end, not because he didn't deserve it, but because she'd figured out something about hate the same way she'd figured out everything else the hard way in Young. Hate was just another way of staying in the dark with him, and she was done with the dark. He's not my story, she told Victoria once years on. That's what I finally get. For 19 years, I thought my story was the bridge and being nobody and everything that got taken from me. And then I thought maybe my story was him and the truth and the trial, but it's not that either. She smiled that whole real smile that took years to learn. My story is that a girl the whole world walked past turned out to be the one who couldn't walk past anybody. That's it. That's the whole thing. Everything else is just what happened around it.
O suspecto.
On the 5th anniversary of the night on Kessler Street, they threw a party, the club, the foundation, the whole strange, enormous family that a thunderstorm had built. Hundreds of people. Kids who'd aged out and had somewhere to go now. Bikers who'd learned to be seen instead of feared. Reyes, who kept a photo of Lily on her desk at the county to remind her that behind every file was a person somebody hadn't found yet. Dorothy front and center telling anyone who'd listen that she'd known Grace's girl was special the first night she met her under a bridge in the rain. And Victoria stood up, cane and all, to say a few words the way she always did, and the room went quiet. 5 years ago tonight, she said, "I took my bike out in a storm I had no business riding in, and I nearly died on a wet road while the whole world drove past me." She found Lily in the crowd. And one person didn't drive past. One person who had every reason in the world to stay hidden, who'd been taught her entire life that she was nothing, that she was invisible, that she didn't matter to a single soul. That person heard a stranger dying in the dark and ran toward the sound instead of away from it. She lifted her glass. "I've told this story 1,000 times, and I'm going to tell it 1,000 more, because it's the truest thing I know. That girl thought she saved my life that night." Victoria's voice thickened the way it always did, the way it would every time until the day she died. She did, but what she never understood, what took her years to believe, is that she didn't just save me. She saved every single person in this room because she showed us all what we could be. She taught a club of hard people how to be soft. She taught a city that walked past her how to look. And she proved the one thing this world spends so much effort trying to make us forget. The whole room was still. "The value of a person," Victoria said, "has nothing to do with what they own, or where they sleep, or what the world has decided they're worth. Sometimes the people we ignore, the ones we walk past, the ones we've trained ourselves not to see, sometimes they're the strongest people among us. Sometimes they're the ones who change everything. All it takes is for one of us to finally look." She raised her glass higher, and 300 people raised theirs. "To Lily," Victoria said, "the girl nobody saw, who turned out to be the one who saw us all." And they drank and they cheered, and Lily Carter Weller stood in the middle of a family she'd built out of a storm seen by every single face in the room, and she did not shrink from it, and she did not run, and she did not disappear. She'd spent 19 years learning to be invisible. She spent the rest of her life being a light. And that is the truth. The whole world should never be allowed to forget the strongest person in any room is not the one with the money or the power or the reputation or the badge. It is the one who chooses kindness when no one is watching and pays for it and steps into the light anyway. Lily Carter was nobody, and nobody, it turned out, was the bravest person any of them had ever known.